Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Finding Proof show. This is a bit exciting, a bit impromptu, and a little bit overwhelming in a way because, of course, as many of you know, I've done quite a bit of Facebook live streaming. I have a number of groups and other things that I run, but the Finding Proof show is a brand new format for me. You're going to see it evolve over time. You're going to see a number of things unfold as we move forward. Hi, Gerda, thanks for joining, and thank you for the love hearts. And Jen, thank you for joining too. It's great to have you here. This is the point of the Finding Proof show, is it's a live interactive experience. It's an opportunity every week for a Q&A style interaction. You can let me know ahead of time what your questions are going to be for the week if you would like me to answer something specific for you, or you can interact with me as we go and ask questions and see where that takes us. I will have a theme each week. I will have visitors some weeks. There's any number of ways that we're going to skin this particular cat. What is Finding Proof? So Finding Proof is my suite of programs all aimed at helping you discover within yourself all of those hidden layers, hidden elements of confidence, self-esteem, self-respect, courage, and that fire in your belly to achieve the next level of what you're striving for. Most of you know that I am a psychologist. I'm a clinical and a forensic psychologist. I wear a couple of hats. I'm a private practice owner. My practice has a couple of locations in Tasmania. And for those of you overseas, of course, Tasmania is the little heart-shaped island at the bottom of Australia. So I literally am coming to you from the bottom of the world, next stop Antarctica, at the end of our winter. Now, Finding Proof is about uncovering and building up a body of evidence that you can rely on, that you can prove to yourself. And this is the difference. I know there's a lot of motivational speakers out there. I am not one. There are a lot of coaches out there. I'm not one of those either. I'm using very simple, straightforward psychological techniques for you to be able to stop filling your head with excuses, stop filling your head with unhelpful thinking, and actually reveal to yourself the truth behind the fear. And the truth behind the fear for you is that there is actually courage in there. And I know that for a fact because you've already overcome a bunch of things already in your life. You've just overlooked that, or you've minimized it, or you've hidden it behind other busy work that you're doing at the moment. Now, today's theme is about who catches the ball when you drop it. Now, my throat, you may hear, if you know me, you'll hear that my voice is not its usual style. It's a little bit more Renee Geyer than it is the typical Tess Crawley. Now, if you have your own business, you'll know the pressure is on when you need to keep everything flowing, everything churning through the days, the weeks, the months. You've got so many balls in the air. What happens when you get sick? What do you do? Who do you have in your corner to keep the machinery rolling if you get unwell? Now, I can talk about various epochs of my professional life and how that has played out. I'm very interested to hear how you manage it in your business or in your working life. If you're not a business person, of course, you're welcome to be part of the conversation as well. What happens? Thinking about parents, thinking about teachers, thinking about mental health professionals like myself, business owners, and I've got a hair in my mouth. Bear with me while I get rid of that. Who picks up that ball and runs with it if you are unwell and unable to keep going through all the things that you have on your plate at the moment? So it's a little bit of a, hey Kath, welcome. It's a bit of a curly question because I know many of us subscribe to that stereotypical view of soldiering on. Now, in Australia, we've had ads over the years for a cold and flu medication, and their theme song is all about soldiering on. And the idea is that you throw some painkillers down your throat, you throw some cold and flu medications down your throat, you squirt something up your nose, and then off you go and you keep soldiering on and you go to work regardless. We're turning a corner. we're starting to understand that that's not the best approach when it comes to infection control, when it comes to burnout prevention, and when it comes to being efficient. You know that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup? It's the same with us in our working lives and our parenting lives. We need to keep ourselves topped up. We need to look after ourselves, and we need to stop and let somebody else carry that ball for us. How are you at delegating? Are you able to trust that somebody will carry the flag for you while you take some time out to recover if you're unwell? Kath is my flag bearer. She's been amazing this last couple of weeks while I've been unwell. Kath's a member of my team. She's a principal psychologist on my team, and she looks after my clinical and my admin team beautifully. And in my absence, she has had the extra burden of just holding things together while I've been unwell. And of course, I'm lucky that I have her on my team, but it took a while for me to get to that point of being able to delegate. So what stops us from delegating? Have you any ideas behind that? You know, what stops you when you think about giving something important to somebody else to do? What feeling do you get? What hesitation do you have? Is it fear? Is it a lack of control that worries you? Is it anxiety around things being done incorrectly? What happens to you when you feel like, I can't do this, but I can't trust anybody else to do it for me either? It creates all this extra stress. It increases that sense of unwellness when we are sick. It increases that sense of trappedness in our working days. That all escalates the risk for burnout, the risk for increased unwellness, and so on. And your team won't thank you. They won't thank you if you get sick and you spread your germs amongst your team. They won't thank you if you're doing a half-hearted job because you're not well and you make mistakes in your own decision-making. And they certainly won't thank you if your business starts to suffer and their jobs become at risk. So there's so much riding on us being really honest with ourselves as leaders, business owners, parents. I keep throwing parenting in the mix because I think that's a really important leadership role that we can't overlook. When we don't stop and care for ourselves. So some tips around two things very quickly. Tips around self-care. We stereotype self-care as being around, bubble baths and chocolates and that sort of thing, and the occasional massage. I've talked about that in my podcast this week, which I'll be publishing later today, actually. But self-care really, in my mind, is about stopping, pausing, being very, very honest with yourself, and using some sometimes harsh words with ourselves to say, oi, stop, you need a break, and you need to look around you at what you can delegate so that you don't blow up and bust. Because, of course, if we fall over, then what happens next? So if you don't have a team, or if you're thinking of building a team and you're struck by this idea, I remember not very long ago, my days were full of individual client appointments back to back to back, and my diary would be booked 8 weeks in advance. Now, if I or one of my kids got sick, that would throw such a big spanner in the works, because I would have to reschedule clients and no availability for 8 weeks. That made it very, very stressful. And so what I would then do is try and juggle people around and inconvenience so many other people. And I've realised that in doing that, I did myself a disservice and I did my clients a disservice too. So one of the things I'm trying to gently encourage my team to think about is how they manage their diary in a forward-thinking view. So there's a little bit of room for flexibility in there so that if they get unwell, it's a little easier for them to juggle their diaries. There's no perfect system. When you're in a profession that requires, individual bookings and they're booked in advance, obviously there's a little bit of constraint there. But trying to find room for flexibility, trying to find room for delegation. So sometimes there are things we can't delegate, okay? We can't delegate all of our parenting obligations. We can't delegate all of our individual client work sometimes. But there might be some things that you can look at really honestly and say, who can I hand that over to? If I'm becoming unwell, if I know myself well enough and am engaging in enough self-care that I'm aware of these issues, who can I delegate to ahead of time so that I can take some of the stress off? Now, if you're in a small business where you are the only person in your business and everything rides on you, then that is a really hard conversation to have with yourself because it requires thinking outside the square. So, hi Melissa, welcome. So, one of the things you could be thinking about is your administration. If you're in a business by yourself, who's handling all the administration? You. I know. We've all been there. We've all done that. Who could you delegate to? You might not be able to hire someone in a hurry, but you might be able to bring in a temp. That's what we've done in my business recently. We've got some administrative staff changes. We've brought in a temp to help bolster our team's sense of coping, really, at the moment. Or you might decide to bring in an external agency such as a virtual assistant who can answer the phones for you for a couple of weeks at least while you have a need for less pressure and less stress on you. One of the key things, in addition to self-care, I think one of the key issues we really need to be thinking about when we're looking at the things that limit us from delegating is trust. And what's behind trust is courage, confidence, fear, anxiety, all those mixed feelings, some of them good, some of them not pleasant, that stop us from feeling safe to delegate. I would be encouraging you to have a step back and look at all the things that you could delegate. Think of it in an ideal world scenario. What are the things I could delegate? The simplest way to identify those is think about the things that really fill you with energy when you think about doing them, and think about the things that make you go, ugh, when you think about doing them. Make a big long list of all the things you do in your day and just put a circle about all the things that make you go, oh God, I hate doing that stuff. So whether it's your books, whether it's your filing, whatever it might be, think about whether it's your cleaning, whatever it might be, and write a circle around all those things that deplete you, that don't give you energy, that don't serve you in some way, but they've still got to be done. They're the first things to think about delegating. Hand those things over to somebody else. Reduce your workload, reduce the pressure on you so that you don't feel that you are juggling all the balls in the air. Now, I know what you're thinking. I know that there's money involved in these things. You're worried about the finances behind funding a cleaner, funding an admin person, hiring a new team member. That all costs money. But I want you to be very, very honest about what it's currently costing you to do all those things yourself. If you weighed up all the things that you're doing and then broke all that time down into your hourly rate, thinking about the stuff that you are getting paid to do and the things that you're not getting paid to do, how is it impacting your bottom line to be spending time on things that don't serve you financially and energy-wise when you could be spending more time doing the things that invigorate you and increase your earning potential? Why wouldn't you do that? So think of delegation also as being a bit of an investment. It's an investment in your business, it's an investment in you, it's an investment in your home, an investment in your family's sanity, your sanity. All of these things that you can be doing to fill your cup. Remember, you can't pour from an empty one. So filling your cup by reducing the pressure on you. I don't know if you can hear a little tippy-tappy noise in the background. I've got Miles here with me. He's our practice dog in the practice. And he's tippy-tapping around on the wooden floors and helping himself to a little bit of a dog biscuit. So there's some tippy-tapping and some munching and crunching going on in the background. So look, I wanted to share with you today these ideas. I wanted to share with you some thoughts, inspired by my own fortunate position that I have not been lucky to find myself in. I have worked hard to find myself in the position of having a team that supports me, having Kath right at my back whenever I need her help in things, having my admin team who I trust. They're all learning new parts of our admin roles at the moment because we've had some staffing changes, and I trust them. They make mistakes. I make mistakes. We all do. part of that courage and that trust in delegating is you have to be able to sit with the discomfort that somebody will make a mistake, because we are all human. More mistakes get made when we're unwell and we push through the stress and the physical demands of being unwell. We make big mistakes when we do that. Big enough mistakes that can cost us our business or our job or our team. So thinking about pulling back, thinking about delegating sensibly and wisely, thinking about investing in you and in your business, these issues are too important to keep using the excuse, I can't afford to delegate. I don't have time to teach anybody. I don't have time to think about what needs doing. You've got to make time, because if you get so sick that you can't work and you can't bring in an income for yourself, you can't bring in revenue for your team and your business, everybody suffers. That sounded a bit like a rant today. I've wanted much more interaction, so feel free if you've got any thoughts or questions just to share those. I will also say that down the track, I'm just logging into my laptop as well so that I can make sure I'm not missing any comments or questions. Down the track, as I've said, we will have interviews happening, or shared chats, if you like, happening on the Finding Proof show. My laptop's not letting me in, so bear with me for a second while I do that. And I'm really keen to hear also your ideas on who you'd like me to talk to, or what type of professional or type of person you'd like to hear me talk to. I've got some ideas around some very interesting guests, and they'll be either on the Finding Proof show or on the Finding Proof podcast, possibly both. Who knows where we're going to take this? But I have some very interesting people in line to speak to and to share their learnings with you, people who have overcome amazing adversity behind the scenes to be courageous enough to take their profession where it needed to go, people who've uncovered little bits of evidence in themselves about how strong they've been in the past, and just that little bit of insight has blown their minds and just helped them launch onto the next level of what they're doing professionally and in their business. Stories from people who have challenged themselves, stories from people who constantly fight and push against the norm because what they are doing is something they believe in so strongly, and that takes guts to stand by your convictions. So thank you for joining me today. It's possibly a bit of a shorter episode today, partly because my voice is still learning to talk properly again, and partly because we're new, we're finding our way together. So the Finding Proof show will be here every Thursday morning at 10 o'clock Australian Eastern Time. That's, now let me get it, it's 5 p.m. Pacific Time in the US and 8 p.m. New York time. So I can't tell you the rest of the times. I know I've got a bit of a global audience, so I can't tell you Sweden. Christina, you'll have to tell us what's going on with the time in Sweden and so on. But of course, these show episodes remain recorded and remain stored on the Finding Proof page. They will make their way to YouTube once I've got an assistant to help me update my YouTube channel. We won't talk about that today. And so they'll be there for you to access at any time in the future. So thank you all for joining me today. It's been absolutely lovely having you here with me on the very first episode of Finding Proof, and a big shout out to Steve Carless, who insisted quite challengingly that I just get on with it and launch the show this morning. I had 2 hours notice to get myself together. So there you go. The show is now live and will be here weekly. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to have a listen to the Finding Proof podcast, and I look forward to speaking to you all again very, very soon. Bye-bye for now.